My name's Sarah, 51 years young, or old, depending on the kind of day I'm having. If you're expecting a tale of whimsy or a life that's been anything but ordinary, you might as well grab a seat because it's been one heck of a ride. Let's start with the heart of my world, Emily. My girl, my everything. Raising her on my lonesome wasn't part of the dream, you know? Her dad decided a fresh start was in order, across the globe, no less, leaving us high and dry. That man swapped us out like last season's wardrobe, and before I knew it, he had himself a shiny new family. So, there it was, just me and Em against the world. My days? They blurred into one long shift, juggling jobs like a circus act. The diner by day, the bar by night, and on good days, a bit of cleaning work squeezed in between. Sleep was a luxury, a fleeting visitor between shifts. But seeing Emily smile, hearing her laugh, that was the real paycheck. But Em, bless her, she's 23 and still figuring out life's big puzzle. Jobs? She's had more than a few, but none stuck. It's the boss, Ma, he's a real piece of work. Or, I can't deal with customers, they're all insane. Excuses as colorful as a painter's palette. Each job ended with her back on our couch, phone in one hand, remote in the other. And me? I just couldn't stay mad at her. It's alright, Em. Something better will come along, I'd say, hiding the worry gnawing at my gut. Because that's what you do when you love someone, you wear the world's troubles so they don't have to. One particularly rough day, after a double shift that had me more bone than flesh, I came home to find Emily sprawled on the sofa, a mess of job application forms scattered around like confetti. Hey, Ma, she greeted without looking up, her attention glued to the TV screen. Hey, kiddo. Anything bite today? I asked, shedding my coat and the weight of the day. She shrugged, a gesture I knew all too well. Nah, it's all crap. Why bother? They don't want to pay a living wage anyway. I sighed, a mix of exhaustion and frustration brewing. Em, we talked about this. You gotta start somewhere, right? Can't be picky in times like these. Whatever, Ma. It's easy for you to say. You're used to busting your back for peanuts, she fired back, her words sharp like a knife. That stung. Not gonna lie. But anger? It never had a place in our home. I bit back the retort simmering on my tongue and instead, forced a smile. Maybe so, kiddo. But those peanuts kept a roof over our heads and food on the table. Someday, you'll understand that. Emily rolled her eyes, the universal sign of young adult disdain. Sure, Ma. I'm hitting the sack. Night. Watching her disappear into her room, a part of me ached. Ached for her to see the world not as an adversary, but as a challenge to be met head-on. Yet, there I was, picking up the scattered forms, tidying up the living remnants of her latest defeat. The thing about life is, just when you think you've got it all figured out, it throws you a curveball. And not the kind you can hit out of the park. No, I'm talking about the kind that hits you square in the chest and leaves you gasping for air. That's exactly what happened the day Emily decided to drop her little bombshell. It was a Tuesday, not that it matters, but I remember because Tuesdays were meatloaf nights. I was in the kitchen, elbows deep in ground beef, when Emily waltzed in, her face all lit up like a Christmas tree. Behind her trailed Alex, a guy I'd seen maybe once or twice before. I didn't have anything against him, but let's just say he wouldn't be my first pick for a son-in-law. Not that I was thinking about that kind of stuff, until I had to. Ma, guess what? Emily chirped, bouncing on her heels. I glanced over, eyebrow raised. You finally decided to clean your room? She rolled her eyes, a grin spreading across her face. Funny, Ma. No, better. Alex and I got married. You know that feeling when your heart skips a beat? Yeah, mine skipped, tripped, and fell flat on its face. Married? I echoed, my voice sounding like it belonged to someone else. Alex stepped forward, a sheepish smile plastered on his face. Yeah, Mrs. S., we eloped last weekend. Surprise? Surprise was an understatement. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. Eloped? I repeated, still processing. And you're just telling me now? Emily's excitement dimmed a bit, replaced by a defensive edge. I knew you'd react like this, Ma. That's why we didn't tell you before. But it's done. And we're happy, aren't we, Alex? Alex nodded, slipping an arm around her. Yeah, totally happy. I put down the mixing spoon, wiping my hands on my apron. This was a conversation that needed my full attention. And where, pray tell, do you plan on living? I asked, already dreading the answer. Well, here, Emily said, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. With you, Ma. Where else? Where else indeed? I took a deep breath, trying to tamp down the rising tide of frustration. Emily, honey, you're married now. Don't you think it's time you? I don't know, started your own life? Somewhere that's not here? Her face fell. Ma, you know we can't afford that. Alex's job doesn't pay much, and I'm still looking. Looking. Right. The eternal job hunter. I looked from her to Alex, who seemed content to let Emily do the talking. Something about the set of his jaw irked me, the way he seemed to assume this was all fine and dandy. Look. I started, trying to keep my voice even. I love you, Emily. You know I do. But this isn't what I wanted for you. For either of us. Emily's response was swift and sharp. What, Ma? You didn't want me to be happy? Is that it? No, of course not, I countered, feeling the conversation slip away from me. I thought you'd want more. That you'd strive for more. More what, Ma? More work? More nights alone? Thanks, but I'll pass on that. The conversation spiraled from there, each word more heated than the last. Alex tried to chime in, but he might as well have been a fly buzzing around a hurricane. This was between me and my daughter, and it was clear neither of us was going to budge. In the end, we called a truce, but the air remained thick with unsaid things. Alex moved in the next day, his belongings taking up space in a home that suddenly felt too small. I retreated into myself, wondering where I'd gone wrong, how my little girl had grown so far from the dreams I'd had for her. The day I found out about the cancer was the day my world flipped on its head. I'd been feeling off for a while, but cancer? That word felt like a freight train hitting me at full speed. The doctor was gentle about it, but the word still stung. It's treatable, he said. But you'll need to focus on your health, maybe even take some time off work. Work. My lifeline, the thing that kept us afloat all these years, and now I was being told to step back from it. I headed home, the weight of the diagnosis crushing me. The house was quiet when I got in, too quiet. Emily was in her room, probably lost in her phone, and Alex, well, Alex was Alex, doing whatever it was that he did. I needed them, needed their support, so I called them both to the living room. Guys, we need to talk. I started, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to sound strong. Emily looked up, her eyes wide. What's up, Ma? You look like hell. I sighed, not sure how to say the words. I've got cancer. I blurted out, the words feeling alien and heavy on my tongue. There was a moment of silence, and then Emily's face changed, but not in the way I'd hoped. Cancer? But, what does that mean, for, us? Her question caught me off guard. Well, it means I'll be going through treatment, and I had to quit my job to focus on getting better. The room went cold. Alex, who'd been silent until now, finally spoke up. Quit your job? How are we supposed to live, then? My job barely covers my stuff. I stared at them, disbelief washing over me. This was their concern? Not my health, not the battle I was about to face, but their comfort? Emily chimed in, her tone sharp. Yeah, Ma, how could you not think about us? What are we supposed to do now? The disappointment hit me like a second diagnosis. My own daughter, the girl I'd raised, sacrificed for, was more worried about her financial comfort than my fight for life. I thought you'd be worried about me, about what I'm going through, I said, my voice breaking. Well, of course, we're worried, Emily said, her voice softening just a touch. But we've got to be practical here. You can't just quit and expect everything to be okay. Alex nodded in agreement. Yeah, it's not just about you anymore. We've got to think about the future. The future. Their future apparently didn't include the possibility of me not being in it. I realized then what I'd done, or rather, what I hadn't done. I'd raised a daughter who saw me not as a person fighting for her life, but as a means to an end, a financial safety net. After weeks of harsh treatments, the hospital finally sent me home. I was a shell of my former self, hollowed out by radiation and chemotherapy, clinging to the hope that within the familiar walls of my home, I might find some solace, some shred of normalcy. But what greeted me was far from the support and care I had envisioned. The air at home had shifted, it was thick with tension, heavy with unspoken resentments. My daughter, Emily, and her husband, Alex, had taken to treating me more like an inconvenient guest than family. Their patience wore thin at the slightest provocation, their words sharp and cutting. One day, trying to make myself a cup of tea, my hands betrayed me, trembling from the weakness that had become my constant companion. The mug slipped, shattering on the floor, with a sound that seemed to echo my own fragility. The crash brought Emily storming into the kitchen. Seriously, Ma? Can't you do anything right? Look at this mess. Her words were like daggers, and I stood there, mute, the shards of the broken mug mirroring the pieces of my heart. I'm sorry, Em. I didn't mean to. My apology was cut short by Alex's voice, barely a whisper yet loud enough to carry his disdain. How tired you are, you sick old woman. Their words, sharp and unforgiving, were a far cry from the care I had hoped for, the love I thought we shared. Each day was a battle, not against the cancer that ravaged my body, but against the coldness that had taken root in my own home. I moved through the days and a days, my every action, every sound, seemingly an annoyance to them. Asking for help became an exercise in humiliation. Em, could you help me up? I'd ask, reaching out for support. The response was always the same, a huff of irritation, a reminder of her own priorities. And so there are plenty of things to do, and you too, she'd snap, leaving me to fend for myself. Night after night, I cried myself to sleep, the sound of my sobs a solitary lament in the silence of the house. I was a burden, a nuisance in my own home, my presence an unwelcome reminder of the fragility of life. Due to constant stress, my health deteriorated, and I was admitted to the room again. After weeks of silence and solitude in the hospital, the last person I expected to see was Emily. Her visits had become as rare as a cool breeze in a heat wave, and yet, there she was, standing at the foot of my hospital bed, looking every bit as uncomfortable as I felt surprised. Hey, Ma, she started, avoiding my gaze. How you feeling? The casualness of her question, as if she'd been by my side all along, stung. Been better, I replied, my voice raspy from disuse. What brings you here, Em? Finally decided to check on your old mother? She fidgeted, looking anywhere but at me. Yeah, well, there's something we need to talk about. It's about the house. The house. My sanctuary, the only legacy my grandmother left me, and our only real home. A lump formed in my throat. What about it? Emily finally met my gaze, her eyes hard. Alex and we've been talking, and we think it's best if you transfer the house to us. Legally, I mean. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Transfer the house? To you and Alex? Why on earth would I do that? She crossed her arms, her discomfort replaced by defiance. Because, Ma, it's practical. Alex is sick of living there, like he's some sort of freeloader. We want to own it, make it ours. It's not like you're going to be around forever, anyway. Her words felt like a slap. The audacity, the sheer insensitivity. My own daughter, viewing my home, my life, as nothing more than a transaction to secure her future comfort. You think I'm just going to hand over everything because your husband doesn't like feeling like a guest? In my own house? It's not just that, Ma. It makes sense. You're here, sick, and who knows for how long. We're thinking about the future. The future? I echoed, incredulous. And what about my future, Emily? Did you ever stop to think about that? Or is it just about what you and Alex want? She sighed, a sound of frustration and impatience. You're being unreasonable, Ma. We're just trying to be practical here. Practical? I shot back, anger and hurt swirling inside me. You're talking about my home like it's a prize to be won. I worked hard for that house, kept it through everything. And you, my own daughter, you come here, not to see how I'm doing, not to offer comfort or support, but to ask me to give up my home? For what? So you can feel more secure in your marriage? Emily looked away. I thought you'd understand, Ma. But I can see you're just too selfish to see the bigger picture. Selfish? The accusation was a bitter pill to swallow. My whole life, I'd given everything to Emily, sacrificed so much, and now, in my time of need, this was how she saw me? Understanding has nothing to do with it, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. This is about respect, about family. And right now, I don't know if I even recognize you, Emily. Without another word, she turned and left, leaving me alone with my thoughts, my pain, and a heart heavier than it had been before. Lying in the sterile silence of the hospital room, the buzzing of my phone felt like a lifeline to the outside world. When I saw it was Janice, my friend who's been in real estate since we were in high school, my heart skipped a beat. She never called without good reason. Hey, Janice. What's up? I tried to keep my voice steady, despite the dread settling in my stomach. Sarah, I don't know how to say this, but I was at the office today, and I saw a listing. It's your house, Sarah. Emily and that husband of hers are trying to sell it. The room spun. What? That can't be right. My house? Are you sure? As sure as I'm standing here. I thought it was a mistake, but I checked the documents myself. They've forged your signature, Sarah. It's listed under their names now. Anger and disbelief churned inside me. But, how could they? I never gave them any permission. This has to be illegal. It is, Sarah. You need to act fast. I knew she was right. My next call was to Mike, an old friend from college who ended up becoming a lawyer. Explaining the situation left me feeling exposed and vulnerable, but Mike's calm demeanor was a small comfort. Sarah, this is serious. We need to file for an injunction immediately to stop the sale. I'll need every piece of documentation you have on the house. We can argue forgery and undue influence, but we have to move quickly. Okay, Mike. I'll get you everything. I can't believe Emily would do this to me. To her own mother. It's unfortunate, but let's focus on protecting what's yours. I'll start the paperwork. Hang tight, Sarah. Hanging up, I was enveloped by a profound sense of betrayal. My own daughter, scheming behind my back to steal the only thing I had left from my grandmother. The thought was suffocating. Days passed in a blur of legal documents and phone calls. Mike was a godsend, navigating the legal maze with a precision that gave me hope. Meanwhile, I couldn't bring myself to confront Emily, not yet. The wound was too fresh, the betrayal too deep. For days, I interacted with Emily and Alex as if all was well, all the while coordinating with Mike to build our case. Their casualness around me, the way they dodged my gaze, only fueled my resolve. I had to protect what was rightfully mine. When Emily came to visit, feigning concern, I had to stifle a scoff. Hey, Mom. Just checking in. How are you holding up? Her words were hollow, and I played along. I've been better, Em. But I'm hanging in there. How's things at home? I prodded, curious if she'd slip up. Good, good. Alex and I are just, keeping busy. The evasion in her voice was palpable. The conversation danced around the elephant in the room, both of us playing our parts in a twisted performance. After she left, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sorrow for the relationship we once had. But this betrayal? It was a line crossed, and there was no turning back. Mike called later with updates. "We're all set, Sarah. You ready for this?" "More than ever, Mike. Let's do it." As I lay in my hospital bed, staring at the sterile ceiling, I couldn't help but marvel at the situation. My own daughter, plotting against me, and here I was, about to turn the tables. Released from the hospital for a bit, I have started to fulfill my plan. Janice was in on it too. She helped me set it up so I'd show up at my own house, pretending to be interested in buying it. The thought alone had my heart racing with a mix of nerves and a strange sense of excitement. I arrived at the house, dressed differently, hoping Emily and Alex wouldn't recognize me right off the bat. The moment they opened the door, their faces went from eager to sell to outright horror. It was almost comical, seeing them scramble to make sense of what was happening. "Mom? What are you doing here?" Emily stammered, her face pale. "Thought I'd take a look at my own house, considering it's up for sale and all." "Nice listing, by the way," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Alex, ever the smooth talker, tried to recover. "Sarah, look, this is just a big misunderstanding. Let's talk about this." "Misunderstanding?" I scoffed. "Forging my signature and trying to sell my house is a bit more than that, don't you think?" Without another word, I stepped outside and called the police. As I explained the situation, I watched Emily and Alex from the window, their expressions a mix of fear and disbelief. When the police arrived, Emily and Alex were taken away in handcuffs. Their pleas and cries echoed down the street, but my heart was hardened against them. The betrayal was too deep, the wound too fresh. After the dust settled, the quiet in my house was both eerie and soothing. It was just me now, alone with the echoes of a life that once was. The days melded into one another as I focused on my health, on healing not just my body, but my battered heart as well. Miraculously, my health began to turn a corner. The cancer that once seemed like a death sentence slowly retreated into the shadows, giving me a new lease on life. The trial of Emily and Alex was a spectacle, one I attended with a heavy heart. Watching them, so small and defeated in the courtroom, stirred something in me, but it wasn't enough to overcome the betrayal. They pleaded, tears streaming down their faces, begging for my forgiveness. But forgiveness was a river that had run dry. The court handed down a modest sentence for their crimes, but no punishment could right the wrongs they'd done. Word got around, as it always does in small towns. Some folks shook their heads, sking at my hard-heartedness, unable to understand how I could turn my back on my own flesh and blood. But most knew the pain of betrayal, and they stood by me, offering nods of understanding and silent support. It's funny, really, how something so earth-shattering can shift your perspective. I used to care so much about what people thought, about being the perfect mother, the perfect neighbor. But life has a way of teaching you that perfection is a facade, and approval is a fickle friend. One afternoon, as I sat on my porch, basking in the solitude, Janice stopped by, her presence a welcome break in the monotony. "Sarah, you're looking better every day," she said, taking the seat beside me. I smiled, a genuine smile that reached deep into my weary soul. "Feeling it, too. It's funny how peace can heal you in ways medicine can't." Janice nodded, her gaze thoughtful. "Not everyone agrees with your choices, you know. But I think you're one of the bravest people I know." I let out a chuckle, a sound tinged with sadness and wisdom born of pain. "Brave? No, I wouldn't say that. Just tired. Tired of bending until I break. Now, I'm just living for me, and if that's brave, then so be it." Janice squeezed my hand, a silent show of solidarity. "Living for yourself is all any of us can do, Sarah. And for what it's worth, I think you're doing a damn fine job at it." As she left, her words lingered in the air like a benediction. I turned my face to the sky, letting the warmth of the sun seep into my bones. For the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of something like hope, like joy. So, I live. I live for the quiet mornings and the peaceful nights. I live for the friends who stood by me and for the strength I found in solitude. I live with the knowledge that not everyone will understand my journey, and that's okay. Because at the end of the day, it's my journey, and mine alone. My name is Lucy, and I'm 30 years old. I work as an investment analyst, and I'm pretty good at what I do. Some might say I'm too careful with money, but that's just who I am. Growing up as the younger of two sisters taught me early on that if I wanted something, I'd have to work for it myself. My sister, Sarah, is 3 years older than me. She's always been the golden child in our family, the pretty one, the social butterfly, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister, but our parents' favoritism was pretty obvious from day one. It wasn't just about the money, it was about the expectations. They always expected Sarah to succeed effortlessly, while I was just there. Sarah married Tom right after college. He works in construction management, and they quickly started having kids. Now they have 3, Emma, 7, Lucas, 5, and little Joey, 2. They're sweet kids, but Sarah always complains about how hard it is to manage them in their rented apartment. As for me, I've been lucky in my own way. My best friend Jenny's parents own several properties, and they'd been renting me a nice one-bedroom apartment at half the market rate for the past 5 years. They trust me, and I've never given them a reason not to. I've been saving money religiously since I started working. Living below my means, cooking at home instead of eating out, taking public transport when possible, all those small things add up. My colleagues often tease me about being too frugal. But I had a plan. I've always dreamed of having my own place, specifically a small country house. Working remotely became more common at our firm after the pandemic, and I only need to come to the office for important meetings. A peaceful place away from the city seemed perfect. Last week, I finally opened my savings account and really looked at the numbers. After years of careful planning and saving, I had enough for a down payment on a modest country house. I spent hours browsing real estate websites, looking at potential properties. Nothing too fancy, just a cozy place I could call my own. I was in the middle of browsing real estate listings when my phone rang. It was my mother, calling with her usual perfect timing. "Lucy, honey, don't forget we're expecting you for dinner on Saturday," she said, her voice carrying that subtle tone of command disguised as a reminder. "Sarah and Tom are coming with the kids. And please try to be on time for once." I arrived at my parents' suburban house at exactly 5:05 p.m. that Saturday. The driveway was already full. Sarah's minivan took up most of the space, forcing me to park on the street. Before I even reached the front door, I could hear the chaos inside. Emma and Lucas were probably chasing each other around the house, while little Joey added to the cacophony with his toddler squeals. "Lucy's here," Sarah announced as I walked in, barely looking up from where she was trying to convince Joey to eat his mashed potatoes. The kids barely acknowledged my presence, too caught up in their own world. Mom was in her element, fussing over everyone and everything. Dad was already settled in his favorite chair, newspaper in hand. "Everything's getting so expensive these days," he grumbled from behind the pages. "Have you seen the price of gas? Highway robbery, that's what it is." "Tell me about it," Tom chimed in, helping himself to another serving of Mom's lasagna. "And my boss, what a piece of work. Yesterday he comes in, right? Completely changes the project timeline without even consulting the team." "Who does that?" Sarah nodded sympathetically at her husband while wrestling with Joey's bib. "At least you get to leave the house. Try being stuck in a cramped apartment all day with these 3. I took advantage of the chaos to check my phone under the table. There was this perfect little cottage I'd been eyeing, 2 bedrooms, a spacious kitchen, and a gorgeous garden. The price was right in my range too. I was so absorbed in the photos that I didn't notice Mom watching me until she spoke up. "Lucy, what's so interesting on that phone?" You've barely touched your food. All eyes turned to me, and I felt my cheeks warm slightly. I could have made up something about work, but for some reason, I decided to be honest. Actually, I said, I'm looking at houses. I'm thinking about buying one soon. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the kids seemed to sense something had changed. Sarah's fork stopped halfway to her mouth, and Tom's endless complaints about his boss died mid-sentence. Buying a house? Mom repeated, as if she hadn't heard me correctly. You? Well, yes, I said, already regretting my candor. I'm just looking at options right now, nothing definite. What kind of house? Sarah asked, her voice oddly sharp. Where? I haven't really decided yet, I said vaguely, trying to redirect the conversation. Hey, Mom, this lasagna is amazing. Did you change your recipe? But I could feel it, the wheels turning in their heads, the unspoken thoughts almost visible in the air. My parents exchanged one of their meaningful looks, and Sarah kept shooting glances at Tom. The usual dinner chaos resumed eventually, but something had shifted. The rest of the evening felt off-kilter, like everyone was playing their usual roles, but with their minds elsewhere. A week flew by, and I'd almost forgotten about the strange tension at the family dinner. Work kept me busy, and I spent my evenings researching mortgage rates and property taxes. I was in the middle of a Zoom meeting when my phone started buzzing with my mother's caller ID. I let it go to voicemail, but she called right back, 3 times. Finally, during my lunch break, I called her back, expecting some kind of emergency given her persistence. Lucy, finally, Mom's voice was bursting with excitement. I found the perfect house for you. You won't believe how perfect it is. Martha, you remember Martha from church? She told me about this listing in her neighborhood. It's absolutely ideal. I put down my lunch and pressed my fingers to my temple, already feeling a headache coming on. Mom, I haven't even asked for help finding a house. But she was already in full swing, impossible to interrupt. It has 4 bedrooms, no, 5. The master bedroom is huge, and there are these adorable children's rooms with built-in closets. Oh, and the backyard. There's already a playground installed, can you believe it? And the location is just perfect, walking distance to St. Mary's Elementary School and the public library. Mom, I finally managed to cut in. I appreciate you thinking of me, but that's not what I'm looking for at all. There was a pause on the other end. What do you mean? I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice gentle but firm. I'm looking for something completely different. I want a small country house, something cozy just for me. I don't need multiple children's rooms or a playground. Don't be ridiculous, she said sharply. You can't just think about yourself. You need to plan ahead. This house is perfect, it's even on sale. Martha says the owners are motivated to sell quickly. I know what works for me, I said firmly. I want a quiet place in the countryside where I can work from home. That's what I'm looking for. She made a sound of displeasure in her throat. Well, don't come crying to me when you realize I was right. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, feeling a mixture of frustration and guilt. But I didn't have long to dwell on it because my phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. Hey sis, check this out. What followed was a barrage of links to real estate listings. Every single one was a massive family home in the city. 4 to 6 bedrooms, multiple bathrooms, huge yards, all near schools and parks. I quickly typed back, thanks, but I'm actually looking for something smaller in the countryside. Sarah's response was immediate, but these are such good deals. Look at this one, it even has an in-law suite. More links kept coming. During afternoon meetings, my phone kept buzzing with messages from Sarah. Each one was another house listing, each bigger and more family-oriented than the last. I stopped checking Sarah's messages after the 20th house listing. Instead, I called Amanda Chen, a realtor I'd found through positive online reviews. She had a reputation for really listening to her clients, which was exactly what I needed. I want something small and cozy, I explained. A country house, but not too far from the city. Good internet connection is a must since I work from home most days. Maybe a small garden where I could grow some herbs and vegetables. Budget? I told her my range, and her eyes lit up. I think I might have exactly what you're looking for. It just came on the market yesterday. Want to take a look this weekend? The house was about 40 minutes from the city, set back from a quiet country road. As soon as Amanda's car turned into the gravel driveway, I felt something click inside me. The house was perfect, a charming 2-bedroom cottage with white siding and dark green shutters. A wraparound porch hosted 2 rocking chairs, and mature maple trees provided shade in the front yard. Inside, sunlight streamed through large windows into an open-plan living area. The kitchen was small but updated, with butcher block countertops and new appliances. A wood-burning fireplace dominated one wall of the living room. Upstairs, there were 2 modestly sized bedrooms and a full bathroom with a clawfoot tub. But it was the sunroom at the back of the house that sealed the deal. Windows on 3 sides looked out over a well-tended garden with raised beds and a small greenhouse. The owner is motivated to sell quickly, Amanda mentioned as we stood in the sunroom. She's willing to offer a 5% discount for a fast closing. I didn't hesitate. I want it. The next week was a whirlwind of paperwork, mortgage applications, and negotiations. I put down a larger down payment than required to keep the monthly payments comfortable. Every night, I fell asleep looking at photos of my future home, imagining where I'd put my furniture, planning what I'd plant in the garden. When everything was signed and official, I felt like I was walking on air. I couldn't wait to share my news with my family, despite their previous attempts to influence my decision. The following Saturday, I drove to my parents' house for dinner, practically buzzing with excitement. Sarah and Tom were already there with the kids, as usual. We settled in for dinner, and Mom served her traditional pot roast. The usual complaints and conversations flowed around the table: Tom's latest workplace drama, Sarah's struggles with the kids' school schedules, Dad's commentary on the economy. Then Mom turned to me with a smile that made my stomach clench. "Oh, Lucy, I'm so glad you're here. I was just talking to Barbara next door. She's selling her house. You remember Barbara's house? She's willing to give us, you, a good price. You should really consider." Actually, I interrupted, unable to contain myself any longer. I've already bought a house. The clatter of cutlery against plates came to an abrupt halt. Emma's cartwheel in the background stopped mid-turn. The silence was absolute. I took a deep breath and started describing my new home, my voice filled with enthusiasm despite the tension around the table. "It's this beautiful cottage about 40 minutes outside the city. 2 bedrooms, the most amazing sunroom, and there's even a small greenhouse in the backyard. The previous owner had these gorgeous raised garden beds, and..." "Are you out of your mind?" Dad's fist came down on the table, making the plates jump. I'd never seen him this angry before. Joey started crying at the sudden noise. What? I stammered, completely thrown by their reaction. "How dare you?" Mom's face had turned an alarming shade of red. "How dare you buy a house without consulting us first? After everything we showed you? All those perfect family homes we found?" I felt like I'd suddenly stepped into some bizarre alternate reality. "Why would I need to consult you about buying my own house with my own money?" "Because we had it all planned out." Mom was practically screaming now. "Barbara's house would have been perfect. Right here in the neighborhood, plenty of room for everyone." "Room for everyone?" I repeated slowly, feeling increasingly confused. "It's just going to be me living there." The silence that followed was deafening. Mom and Dad exchanged looks, while Sarah sat there with an eerily calm expression on her face. Tom was suddenly very interested in his plate. "Actually, Lucy," Mom said, in a tone that made my blood run cold, "the plan was for Sarah, Tom, and the kids to live there with you." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. It didn't come. "I'm sorry, what?" I managed to choke out. Sarah nodded, as if this was the most natural thing in the world. "We're so cramped in that apartment, Lucy. It's really hard on the kids. Your house would have given us all the space we need. She smiled, like she was discussing borrowing a sweater. And since we wouldn't have to pay rent or utilities, we could finally start saving some money. I looked around the table, from face to face, waiting for someone to crack a smile, to say gotcha, or burst out laughing. But all I saw were dead serious expressions. Dad's stern disapproval. Mom's righteous anger. Sarah's entitled expectation. Tom's awkward avoidance. I struggled to form words. You all just assumed I would buy a house for Sarah's family to live in? Well, of course, Mom threw up her hands. That's what family does. We help each other. Help each other? I repeated incredulously. This isn't helping, this is expecting me to provide housing for 5 people without even asking me. You're being selfish, Sarah said, her calm facade cracking slightly. You know how hard it is for us in that tiny apartment. Emma and Lucas have to share a room, and Joey's crib is in our bedroom. It's not fair to the children. I felt like I was drowning in crazy. The room seemed to spin a little as the full impact of their expectations hit me. They had all sat there, for weeks, planning out my future, deciding how I should spend my money, without ever once considering what I wanted or even thinking they should ask me about it. You need to cancel this ridiculous purchase immediately, Mom demanded, her voice sharp with authority. Call your realtor first thing Monday morning. Barbara's house is still available, and it's perfect, right here in the neighborhood, close to all the good schools and kindergartens. No. I stood up from the table, my chair scraping against the floor. The word came out stronger than I expected, fueled by decades of pent-up frustration. The dining room erupted into chaos. Mom jumped up from her chair, waving her arms. Dad's voice boomed over everyone else's. The kids started crying, picking up on the tension in the room. But we'll be so cramped, Sarah wailed, as if she hadn't heard me at all. Do you know how hard it'll be to get the kids to school from all the way out there? Emma has ballet on Tuesdays, Lucas has soccer on Thursdays. I spun to face my sister, something inside me finally snapping. You're not going to be cramped anywhere, because you're not living in my house. None of you are, ever. Is that clear enough for you? The room fell silent. They all stared at me like I'd grown a second head. The entitled shock on their faces was almost comical. Lucy, Mom gasped, clutching her pearls. How can you be so cruel to your own sister? I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, their voices rising again behind me. I couldn't listen to another word. I got in my car and drove home in a daze, their screams still ringing in my ears. Sitting alone in my apartment later that night, memories started flooding back. Christmas, 1999, Sarah got the expensive American Girl doll she wanted, while I received the knockoff version from the discount store. They look exactly the same, Mom had said, but they didn't. Our 16th birthday, Sarah had gotten a brand new Volkswagen Beetle when she turned 16, complete with a big red bow on top. I got Dad's old Honda with 150,000 miles on it and a tendency to break down. High school graduation. Sarah's graduation party was a catered affair in the backyard with a hired DJ and custom decorations. Mine was a quiet family dinner because we had too many expenses that month. College years. Sarah attended her dream school with our parents covering every expense, tuition, room and board, even a generous monthly allowance. Meanwhile, I spent my senior year of high school applying for every scholarship I could find, staying up late to maintain my perfect GPA, knowing it was my only shot at higher education. And now, here we were. After years of favoring Sarah, of giving her everything while I worked for scraps, they'd just assumed they could commandeer my house, the one thing I'd achieved completely on my own. They'd planned to hand over my dream home to Sarah, just like they'd handed her everything else. I was in the middle of packing my kitchen when the aggressive pounding started on my apartment door. The coffee mug I was wrapping in newspaper slipped from my hands, but thankfully landed on a pile of packing paper. Lucy, open this door right now, my father's voice boomed through the wood. We know you're in there. I froze, bubble wrap still in hand. More pounding followed. "Go away," I shouted back. "I'm not discussing this anymore. Don't you dare talk to us like that." Dad's fist made the door rattle in its frame. "We raised you better than this." My hands were trembling as I picked up my phone. "If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police." "I mean it." I pulled up the keypad on my phone and deliberately pressed 9, making sure they could hear the beep. "I'm dialing right now." "You ungrateful little," Dad's curse was cut off by Mom's sharp intake of breath. "We'll leave." Mom's voice had turned cold as ice, "but this isn't over, Lucy. You're making a terrible mistake." I listened to their footsteps retreating down the hallway, then slid down against the wall, my heart pounding. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. So wrong. The first message from Sarah came an hour later, a photo of Emma and Lucas cramped together on their shared bunk bed. "Look how little space they have," the caption read. "Emma can't even have a desk for homework." I didn't respond. Another photo followed, Joey's crib wedged into the corner of Sarah and Tom's bedroom. "He wakes up every time we come to bed. This isn't fair to him." Delete. When I continued to ignore her, Sarah's messages turned nasty. They started coming at all hours, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 a.m. "You always were Dad's least favorite. Mom cries herself to sleep because of you. I hope you're happy all alone in that big house while your nieces and nephew suffer." I blocked her number, then her Facebook, then her Instagram. But she kept finding new ways to reach me, creating new accounts, using Tom's phone, even setting up fake email addresses. Then the phone calls started coming from other directions. First, it was Aunt Marie. "Lucy, honey, I just heard what's happening with your sister. Surely you can find it in your heart to help family?" Next came Uncle Bob. "Kid, you need to think about what really matters here. Family comes first. My mother's best friend Susan, your mother is devastated. How could you do this to your own family?" Even my old high school teacher, Mrs. Peterson, whom my mother still saw at church, "Lucy, I always thought you were such a kind student. I'm so disappointed to hear about this situation with your sister." They all had the same message: I was selfish, heartless, cruel. I should give up my house, my dreams, my independence, to solve my sister's problems. None of them seemed to question why Sarah's housing situation was somehow my responsibility. After 2 weeks of constant harassment, I'd had enough. I went to my mobile carrier and changed my number, giving it only to my workplace and a handful of trusted friends who hadn't taken sides in this mess. Moving day was wonderfully quiet. I hired a moving company I'd never used before, making sure there was no way for my family to track the address through familiar local services. The movers were efficient and professional, and by sunset, I was standing in my new living room, surrounded by boxes and possibility. That first night in my cottage, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea, listening to the crickets and watching the stars come out. No traffic noise, no sirens, no family drama, just peace. I felt something inside me finally relax, a tension I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying for years. Of course, I still occasionally saw their social media posts. Sarah's passive-aggressive status updates about family betrayal and selfish siblings. Mom's thinly veiled posts about ungrateful children and family duty. The comments from relatives and family friends, all taking their side without knowing the full story. But here's the thing, none of it bothered me anymore. Their words couldn't touch me in my new sanctuary. I transformed the second bedroom into a home office, setting up my monitors to face the window where I could watch birds visit the bird feeder I installed. The previous owner's raised garden beds now burst with herbs and vegetables, my first attempt at gardening turning out surprisingly successful. The greenhouse became my weekend project, slowly filling with plants that made the space feel alive and vibrant. My work productivity actually improved without the constant family interruptions. My boss noticed and gave me more responsibility, along with a raise. I started taking online courses in investment strategy, expanding my expertise without anyone telling me I was wasting my time or should be focusing on finding a husband instead. Sure, there were moments when I missed the idea of family, not the reality of my family, but the dream of what a supportive family could be. Those moments usually passed quickly when I remembered the peace I'd gained in exchange. I made new friends in the area, other professionals who worked remotely, a local gardening group that met monthly, neighbors who respected boundaries and didn't feel entitled to my space or time. None of them knew my family history, and I preferred it that way. They knew me as I am, not as the person my family tried to force me to be. The funny thing is, I'm probably being more true to my parents' original dreams for their daughters than Sarah is. They raised us to be independent, successful women, they just never expected me to be the one who actually did it. And they certainly never expected me to be independent from them too. Sometimes the best family you can have is yourself, at least until you choose to add to it on your own terms, in your own time, in your own way. And that's more than enough for me. It was a warm evening in July when I drove up to my parents' house for summer break. After 3 years of college, these visits had fallen into a predictable pattern: Mom's overenthusiastic hugs, Dad's awkward pats on the back, and endless questions about my studies that never quite masked their disinterest. "Maya, honey," Mom called from the porch. "You're just in time for dinner. And guess who's coming over?" I didn't need to guess. Jennifer, my older sister, and her husband Tom had made it their habit to drop by whenever I was home. As if they needed to remind everyone of their success story. Sure enough, 2 hours later, we were all seated around the dining table. Mom had pulled out her special occasion tablecloth, the one with the delicate lace trim that only saw daylight when Jennifer visited. So, Jennifer announced, setting down her fork with that theatrical flair she'd perfected over the years. "Tom and I have been thinking. We should all go to Hawaii for Christmas." Mom literally clapped her hands like an excited schoolgirl. "Oh, that would be wonderful." Dad beamed with pride. "What a fantastic idea, sweetheart." Then Jennifer turned to me, that familiar mocking smile playing on her lips. "Maya, do you think you can afford it? Or should Big Sister help you out?" I felt my cheeks burn, but kept my voice steady. "I can manage my own expenses, thanks." "Are you sure?" Jennifer raised an eyebrow. "Because we're looking at about $3,000 per person for flights and hotel." I almost choked on my water. $3,000. That was more than all my savings combined, and I was only making minimum wage at my part-time jobs. But I'd rather eat ramen for the next 6 months than accept Jennifer's charity. "I said I'll manage," I repeated firmly. Jennifer shrugged and turned back to our parents. "Well, anyway, the restaurant is doing amazing. We just hired a new sous chef from Italy, can you believe it? Authentic Italian cuisine right here in our town." "You're so entrepreneurial, dear," Mom gushed. "Maya, you should really take notes from your sister about business sense." "Yes, Maya," Jennifer chimed in. "Maybe you could even work for me someday." Sitting at that dinner table, watching my parents fawn over Jennifer's Hawaii plans, I felt like I was 10 again. Nothing had changed. The same eager nods from Mom, the same proud smile on Dad's face, the same feeling of being invisible. Jennifer was still their golden child, just as she'd been since we were kids. 5 years between us might as well have been 50 for all the difference it made in how our parents saw us. They never said it outright, but their actions spoke volumes. Jennifer was the one they believed in, the one they were sure would make something of herself. "Hey, remember when Jennifer won the school business competition in 10th grade? Dad would often reminisce. We knew right then she had that entrepreneurial spirit. The funny thing is, they weren't cruel about it. They never deliberately hurt me or put me down. They just forgot I was there sometimes. Like I was a background character in the Jennifer show. They'd remember to ask about my grades or if I needed anything, but their eyes would always drift back to Jennifer, waiting for her next achievement to celebrate. Thank God for Grandpa Joe. He lived in that big old house, the one with the wraparound porch and the creaky swing. He was the only one who seemed to have enough love for both of us. A successful businessman himself, he'd promised early on to pay for both our college educations. When Jennifer left for college, I was 13 at the time. I thought things would change. Finally, I'd get my chance to be the daughter in the spotlight. Boy, was I wrong. Jennifer just called. Mom would burst into my room, practically vibrating with excitement. She's joined the debate team. We should drive up this weekend to see Jennifer, Dad would suggest at breakfast. We can take her some money for expenses. They'd spend hours on Skype with her, the laptop perched on the kitchen counter while they cooked dinner, Jennifer's voice filling our house even in her absence. Meanwhile, I'd slip out the back door and head to Grandpa's house. Those afternoons at Grandpa's became my sanctuary. We had our own little routine that felt more like home than my actual home ever did. We'd settle into his worn leather couch, a tub of mint chocolate chip ice cream between us, and watch old movies on his ancient TV. You know what's great about Casablanca, Maya, he'd say, pausing the movie. It's not about the obvious hero. It's about the quiet one who does the right thing when nobody's watching. Other days, we'd order a pepperoni pizza and he'd tell me stories about his own childhood while we played chess. He taught me how to fish, too, taking me out on weekends to the lake behind his house. The thing about fishing, he'd say as he helped me bait my hook, is that the best fish aren't always the ones making the biggest splash. Sometimes it's the quiet ones, swimming deep, that turn out to be the most special. I'd sit there in his little fishing boat, watching the sunlight sparkle on the water, and feel like maybe, just maybe, I didn't need to be the favorite to be loved. Grandpa had a way of making me feel seen without making a big production out of it. Want to watch Roman Holiday again? He'd ask after a long day of fishing. I bought those chocolate cookies you like. Those moments weren't grand or flashy like Jennifer's achievements. They were quiet, simple, and real. While my parents were driving across state lines to deliver spending money to Jennifer, I was learning how to play poker with Grandpa using M&Ms as chips. 5 years passed in a blur of family dinners and achievements, all Jennifer's, of course. She graduated college with honors, landed a job at a prestigious firm, and started dating Tom, who my parents immediately declared was perfect for her. Meanwhile, I was preparing for my own college journey. The day I left for college, Grandpa hugged me tighter than he ever had before. His embrace felt different somehow, more urgent, more final. I love you so much, Maya, he whispered in my ear. Never forget that. I laughed it off at the time. Grandpa, you're acting like we'll never see each other again. I'll be home for Thanksgiving. He just smiled that gentle smile of his and patted my cheek. Just remember what I said, kiddo. 2 months into my freshman year, Mom called. Her voice was breaking as she told me Grandpa had died in his sleep. The world stopped spinning for a moment. I sat there on my dorm room bed, phone pressed to my ear, unable to process the words. The funeral was on a crisp autumn day. After the service, we all gathered in Grandpa's attorney's office for the reading of the will. Jennifer sat primly in her designer black dress, while I fidgeted in the scratchy department store one I'd bought last minute. To my daughter Sarah, the attorney read, I leave the sum of $50,000. Mom nodded, squeezing Dad's hand. To my granddaughter Jennifer, I leave the sum of $300,000. Jennifer's face lit up. She immediately turned to Tom, who'd been hovering by her side throughout the funeral. Baby, we can have that dream wedding now. And still have enough to start our restaurant. And to my granddaughter Maya, the attorney continued, I leave my house on Maple Street, including all its contents and the surrounding property. The room went quiet for a moment before Jennifer burst out laughing. Oh my God, Maya got the old house? That's hilarious. She wiped tears of mirth from her eyes. Don't worry, sis, maybe you can sell it and buy yourself something nice. Though I doubt anyone would want that creaky old place. Jennifer, Mom scolded half-heartedly, but she was already smiling at her elder daughter's plans. We'll have the wedding in spring, Jennifer announced, completely taking over the somber moment. Tom and I already have the perfect business plan for an authentic Italian restaurant. This is exactly the capital we needed. True to her word, Jennifer threw herself into wedding planning. It was a spectacular affair, white doves, ice sculptures, a 5-tier cake, and what felt like half the town in attendance. I stood next to her in a bridesmaid dress she'd chosen, watching her marry Tom in what Mom called the social event of the season. Before the honeymoon tan had even faded, Jennifer and Tom opened their restaurant. They called it Bella Vita, Beautiful Life. The local paper did a feature on them, praising the young entrepreneurs for bringing authentic Italian cuisine to our small town. Mom and Dad framed the article and hung it in their living room. Meanwhile, I tried to figure out what to do with my inheritance. The property taxes weren't insignificant, and maintaining that big old house wouldn't be cheap. After running the numbers one weekend, I thought I'd found a solution. At the next family dinner, I decided to bring it up. "I've been thinking about the house," I said, trying to sound confident as I pushed my green beans around the plate. "Since I'm at college most of the year, I could rent it out. That would help cover the taxes and maintenance." The silence that followed made me look up. Mom and Jennifer were exchanging one of their looks, the kind that had always meant trouble for me growing up. Jennifer's husband Tom suddenly became very interested in his mashed potatoes. "Oh, honey," Mom said in that patronizing tone she reserved for when she thought I was being particularly dense. "Why would you want to rent to strangers when your sister and Tom need a place to live?" I blinked. "What?" Jennifer set down her wine glass with a delicate clink. "Well, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Tom and I could use the extra space, especially now that we're running the restaurant. And obviously, you're not going to charge rent from your own sister. I mean, that would be ridiculous." "Right, Mom?" "Of course it would," Mom agreed immediately. "Family helps family." And just like that, they turned back to their previous conversation about the restaurant's new wine list. Dad nodded along, Jennifer gestured animatedly about some expensive Chianti she'd imported, and Tom finally looked up from his potatoes to join in. I sat there, fork suspended halfway to my mouth, as the reality of what had just happened sank in. I could protest, of course. I could point out that it was my house, my inheritance, my decision. I could remind them that Jennifer and Tom had just gotten a huge sum of money from Grandpa's will, while I got, well, apparently nothing now. But I knew it wouldn't make any difference. They'd look at me with that mixture of disappointment and annoyance they always did when I didn't go along with their plans. Mom would sigh and remind me about family loyalty. Jennifer would make subtle jabs about my selfishness for weeks. Dad would give me that look, the one that said I was making things difficult for no good reason. So I did what I'd always done. I swallowed my protests along with my now cold green beans and stayed quiet. The next weekend, Jennifer and Tom moved into my house. She sent me pictures of how they were updating the place, Grandpa's old leather chair replaced by some modern monstrosity, his beloved fishing photos taken down to make room for framed reviews of their restaurant. While I studied for midterms in my cramped dorm room, my sister and her husband lived rent-free in my house. Every time I came home for breaks, I had to ask permission to visit what was legally my own property. Let's get back to the present. After that summer dinner, I threw myself into work with renewed determination. Between morning shifts at the campus cafe and evening hours at the study library, I barely had time to breathe. But every time I felt like giving up, I'd think about Hawaii and push myself to pick up an extra shift. When Jennifer called in late November, I had the money ready. $3,000, nearly every penny I'd earned over the past few months. "Send it today," she instructed. "I need to finalize the bookings." I transferred the money immediately, my hands shaking with excitement as I clicked send on the banking app. That weekend, I treated myself to a new swimsuit, nothing fancy, just a simple blue one-piece on sale. My friend Lisa let me borrow her good suitcase, the one with the wheels that actually worked. December 23rd arrived crisp and cold. I showed up at my parents' house with my borrowed suitcase and new swimsuit, practically buzzing with excitement. But something felt off. Mom barely met my eyes when she hugged me, and Dad kept clearing his throat the way he did when he was uncomfortable. Then Jennifer and Tom arrived. The moment they walked in, I knew something was wrong. Jennifer had that look on her face, the same one she'd worn when she told me she'd be living in my house rent-free. Mom and Jennifer exchanged glances that made my stomach twist. We sat down to dinner, and for a few minutes, there was only the sound of forks against plates. Then Jennifer set down her wine glass and cleared her throat. "We need to discuss something," she announced. "The restaurant, well, we've hit a rough patch. The numbers aren't what we projected." Mom reached over and squeezed her hand supportively. I noticed she already knew what was coming. "We've had to make some tough decisions," Jennifer continued, her voice dripping with fake regret. "We've had to cut some expenses, including our contribution to the Hawaii trip budget." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "So," she went on, gesturing between herself, Tom, and our parents, "we've all discussed it, and we think the best solution is for Maya to sit this one out." The room started spinning. "But I already paid my share," I managed to say. "Yes, well," Jennifer smiled, that condescending smile I knew so well, "that money will help cover the rest of our expenses. We couldn't possibly cancel on everyone, and Tom and I never even had a proper honeymoon because we went straight into the restaurant business." I looked at Mom and Dad, waiting for them to say something, to object to this insanity. But they just sat there, Mom still patting Jennifer's hand, Dad studying his plate as if it held the secrets of the universe. "I paid my share," I said again, my voice shaking. $3,000. That was all my savings. "Maya," Mom snapped, her tone sharp enough to make me flinch. "Family helps family. Jennifer and Tom are going through a difficult time with the restaurant. The least you can do is be understanding." "Understanding?" I whispered. "Yes, understanding. Besides, someone needs to watch the house while we're gone." Mom turned back to Jennifer. "Now, about the hotel arrangements." I stood up so abruptly, my chair scraped against the floor. Nobody even looked up. I climbed the stairs to my old bedroom, the sounds of their cheerful conversation floating up behind me. They continued chatting and laughing as if they hadn't just stolen my money and crushed my dreams. Lying in my childhood bed that night, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars Grandpa had helped me stick on the ceiling years ago, I made my decision. The next morning, I played my part perfectly. I stood on the front porch, smiling and waving as they loaded their luggage into 2 waiting taxis. "Don't forget to water Mom's plants," Jennifer called out, adjusting her designer sunglasses. "And check the mail every day," Mom added. "Don't worry about a thing," I assured them, still smiling. Jennifer leaned out the taxi window. "I'll send you lots of photos. You know, so you won't feel left out." She laughed as if she'd just made the funniest joke. I kept waving until both taxis disappeared around the corner. Then I walked straight to my car and drove to Grandpa's house, my house. Tom and Jennifer's belongings were everywhere. Her clothes filled the closets Grandpa's suits once occupied. Their pretentious art hung where his fishing photos used to be. Their wedding photos sat on the mantel where Grandpa kept our chess set. I started in the master bedroom, pulling out suitcases and boxes, methodically packing everything. Designer clothes, expensive shoes, Tom's custom-made suits, all of it went into boxes and bags. I found their important documents in Grandpa's old study and packed those too. The moving company charged me triple their usual rate for Christmas Eve service. My next stop was a 24-hour locksmith. He also charged a holiday premium, but I didn't care. I watched with satisfaction as he changed every lock in my house. I drove back to campus, arriving just as my friends were starting their Orphan Christmas celebration, our nickname for the holiday party we threw for students who couldn't or didn't want to go home. "Maya," Lisa exclaimed when I walked in. "I thought you'd be in Hawaii by now." "Change of plans," I said, accepting the cup of hot chocolate she offered. "But you know what? I think I'm exactly where I need to be." For a week, my phone buzzed constantly with Jennifer's updates from Hawaii. Each notification felt like a deliberate jab to the ribs. "Living our best life," read the caption under a photo of Jennifer and Tom sipping cocktails on the beach. Making memories with the people who matter most accompanied a sunset dinner picture. My Instagram feed became a showcase of their perfect Hawaiian vacation. Jennifer lounging by infinity pools, mom and dad smiling at luau's, Tom trying to surf. Every photo was carefully filtered and captioned with nauseating platitudes about family time and much-needed breaks from running a business. The worst was her post about knowing when to step back from work and enjoy life. That one came with a photo of all of them holding champagne glasses at a New Year's Eve party, paid for with my savings. Then, early on New Year's Day, my phone exploded. Maya, why are all of Jennifer's things in our living room? Mom. Call me immediately. Dad. What the hell did you do with our stuff? Jennifer. The locks aren't working. Did you change them? Tom. I watched the messages roll in, my phone buzzing like an angry hornet. This is completely unacceptable. Call us now. Mom. If you don't bring the new keys right now, you'll regret this. Jennifer. Maya Elizabeth Parker, answer your phone this instant. Dad. The messages kept coming, growing increasingly angry. Words like ungrateful, selfish, and spiteful filled my screen. Jennifer's texts became particularly colorful, peppered with accusations about betraying family and ruining their lives. How dare you throw your own sister out on the street? After everything we've done for you? Mom. You're just jealous, because we got to go to Hawaii and you didn't. Jennifer. This is the most selfish thing you've ever done. Dad. My phone showed 47 missed calls and over 100 messages by mid-morning. I read each one, letting their words wash over me without response. With each angry message, I felt lighter, freer. They could rage and threaten all they wanted, I wasn't that compliant little girl anymore. I put my phone on silent and went to get breakfast with my friends, leaving their messages unread and their calls unanswered. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel compelled to explain or justify myself to them. By evening, my phone showed over 200 missed calls. The constant buzzing had become white noise, but when Mom's name flashed across my screen for the 201st time, I finally answered. How dare you? Mom's voice exploded through the speaker before I could even say hello. Do you have any idea what you've put your sister through? Maya, Dad's voice joined in from another extension. This behavior is completely unacceptable. I sat cross-legged on my dorm room bed, surprisingly calm. Is it? Like taking my $3,000 and going to Hawaii without me was acceptable? That was different. Mom spluttered. The restaurant. No, I cut her off, my voice steady. Let me talk. For once in my life, just let me talk. Amazingly, they fell silent. You took my money I worked double shifts to earn. You let Jennifer and Tom live in my house rent-free while they ran their restaurant. You've always treated me like I was nothing compared to Jennifer. Always. That's not, Dad started. Remember my high school graduation? You left early because Jennifer called about a job interview. My college acceptance letter? You barely looked at it because Jennifer had just started dating Tom. Every achievement, every milestone in my life has been overshadowed by Jennifer's latest whatever. The words poured out of me, years of hurt and resentment finally finding their voice. And then Hawaii. You didn't just take my money, you laughed about it. Jennifer sent me mocking photos. Do you have any idea how that felt? To know my own family could be so cruel? The silence on the other end stretched out. Finally, Mom spoke, her voice softer, but still defensive. Maya, you have to understand. Jennifer and Tom are really struggling with the restaurant. They need help. And I needed parents who cared about me as much as they cared about Jennifer. I needed a sister who didn't treat me like a doormat. I needed a family who saw me as more than just Jennifer's backup plan. But where will they live? Mom's voice cracked. They can live with you, just like they are now. Or they can rent an apartment like normal adults. My house isn't their safety net anymore. And starting next month, I'm renting it out to actual paying tenants. You can't, Mom began. I can, and I will. I've already talked to a property management company. The lease is being drawn up. I hung up before they could respond. 30 minutes later, my phone lit up with messages from Jennifer. "You vindictive witch, read the first one. You've ruined everything. I hope you're happy now that you've destroyed our lives." Each message was nastier than the last, a stream of vitriol that would have devastated me a year ago. Now, I just turned off my phone and went to sleep. That was a year ago. I'm in my senior year now, and I haven't spoken to any of them since. Through the family grapevine, I hear things. The restaurant finally went under completely. Jennifer and Tom are still living with our parents, supposedly regrouping before their next venture. Meanwhile, the property management company I hired found excellent tenants for Grandpa's house. The rent they pay covers taxes, with enough left over to build a decent savings account. I'm careful with the money. I think Grandpa would be proud of that. Sometimes, usually late at night when I can't sleep, I wonder if we'll ever reconcile. If Mom will ever understand why I did what I did. If Jennifer will ever see me as an equal rather than a convenience. If Dad will ever stand up for me the way he always stood up for her. But then I remember that day in Hawaii when they were all drinking champagne with my money, and I realized something. I don't need their understanding anymore. I don't need their approval or their love or their acceptance. What I need, what I finally have, is my self-respect. At first glance, my life with Mark seemed like a page ripped straight out of a glossy magazine. We were the perfect pair, the enviable couple. I, Monica, the diligent accountant, and he, the dashing new head of the department. Our story began at the office, where quick chats by the coffee machine blossomed into a whirlwind romance. "Can't believe my luck," Mark would often say, his arm wrapped around me. From colleagues to life partners. It's like we were meant to be. I'd smile, nod, and play along. Yeah, who would have thought? The dream team, both at work and home. But as the pages of our story turned, the dream began to show its cracks. After we moved into my personal home, Mark's true colors started to seep through the facade of the perfect husband. He wanted the traditional setup, him, the breadwinner, me, the housewife. "It's how it should be, Monica," he'd insist. "My mom did it, your mom did it. It's tradition." I wanted to argue, to say that times had changed, but I swallowed my words. The prospect of starting a family, of building our little world, was too tempting. So, I hung up my accountant's hat and embraced the role of a housewife, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon. The first drops hit when I noticed the trail of socks and underwear Mark left around the house. "Seriously, Mark? Am I married to a man or a centipede?" I'd joke, trying to keep the mood light. He'd laugh it off, clueless or indifferent to the chaos he was creating. "Come on, Monica. It's just socks. No big deal." But it was a big deal. It was the dishes left by the TV, the pizza boxes on the armchair, the complete disregard for the sanctity of our home. I tried to talk to him, to make him see reason. "Mark, this isn't working. You need to clean up after yourself. This is our home, not a frat house." His reaction was always the same: anger, defensiveness, and a barrage of excuses. "I work all day, Monica. I don't have time for this. You're the housewife, remember? This is your job." Cooking, cleaning, trying to keep the peace, it was a never-ending cycle, a dance I performed to the tune of Mark's whims. But beneath the surface, resentment simmered, a silent scream against the life I was trapped in. Life with Mark's parents felt like a constant invasion. They had this way of just storming into our house, their presence as subtle as a sledgehammer. They never bothered to call ahead, they'd just show up, expecting to be fed and entertained. One afternoon, I was caught off guard by the sound of the doorbell. As I opened the door, there they were, Mark's parents, bags of shopping in hand, looking like they'd just claimed victory in some sort of retail battle. "Well, aren't you going to invite us in, Monica?" Mark's mom, Judy, asked with a tone that brooked no argument. I managed a weak smile, stepping aside. "Of course, come on in." They made a beeline for the kitchen, settling themselves at the table as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "We thought we'd stop by. You know, save you the trouble of cooking for just you and Mark," Judy declared, unloading her shopping bags with a clatter. Stan, Mark's dad, chimed in, already eyeing the fridge. "Yeah, and we figured you'd appreciate the company." "What's for lunch then, Monica?" I felt a pang of irritation. My home, my sanctuary, had turned into a pit stop for their convenience. "I was just about to make some sandwiches," I said, trying to hide my frustration. Sandwiches turned into a full-blown meal as I found myself chopping, stirring, and frying, trying to meet their unspoken expectations. Mark wasn't any help. He'd just slump on the couch, his eyes glued to the TV, completely oblivious to the circus in the kitchen. Later, after they'd left, I tried to talk to Mark about it. "Your parents can't just drop by like this, Mark. It's exhausting. I can't even relax in my own home." He barely looked up from his phone. "Oh, come on, Monica. They're just being friendly. It's not a big deal." I could feel my patience wearing thin. "It is a big deal, Mark. I'm not here to wait on you and your parents hand and foot. I need some space, some respect." But my words seemed to bounce right off him. "They're family, Monica. That's just how family is. Besides, they think you enjoy it." I'd look in the mirror, the reflection staring back at me a far cry from the woman who once walked the office halls in sharp suits and high heels. Now, it was all baggy sweaters and messy buns, my appearance a casualty of the endless demands of my home life. I missed those days, the click-clack of my heels, the sense of purpose each morning brought. Now, my days were a whirlwind of pots and pans, of cleaning up after uninvited guests who treated my home like a pit stop. As the days turned into months, life with Mark grew colder, the distance between us widening like a chasm. His behavior started changing, subtle shifts at first, then more pronounced. A new haircut that made him look years younger, suits that screamed of trying too hard, and a scent that wasn't his usual. It was like he was morphing into someone else, someone I didn't recognize. I tried to shake off the feeling, telling myself it was just a phase, a midlife crisis maybe. But the nagging suspicion in my mind refused to be silenced. It gnawed at me, kept me awake at night. "Mark, is there something you're not telling me?" I finally asked one evening, the words spilling out before I could stop them. We were sitting at the dinner table, an ocean of silence between us. He looked up, startled, like he'd been caught off guard. "What do you mean, Monica?" "I'm not hiding anything." But his eyes, they darted away too quickly, his words a little too rushed. "It's just, you've changed, Mark. The clothes, the perfume. It's like you're a different person." He let out a forced chuckle, but there was no warmth in it. "Come on, Monica. A man can't spruce himself up? I'm just trying to keep things fresh, that's all." I wanted to believe him, I really did. But the doubts, once sown, refused to be uprooted. They grew, fed by his late nights at the office, the weekends he was suddenly too busy, the texts he'd quickly hide when I walked in. The truth, however brutal, couldn't be ignored any longer. So, when he stood up at one of those awkward dinners with his parents, his announcement hit me not like a surprise, but like a confirmation of what I'd already known deep down. "I'm filing for divorce, Monica," he declared, his voice steady, devoid of any emotion. "I've met someone else. Someone young, vibrant. She's everything you're not." The words cut through the room, leaving a trail of shock and disbelief. His parents looked from him to me, their expressions a mix of confusion and dismay. "Mark, what are you saying? This is your wife, for heaven's sake," his mom exclaimed, her voice a mix of anger and disbelief. "Yeah, son. You can't just throw away your marriage like this," his dad chimed in, his brow furrowed in concern. But Mark was relentless, his words a dagger twisting in my heart. "It's decided. I want a family, a son. And Monica, well, she's not up to it. She's let herself go." It's time for a fresh start. His mistress, he painted her like a trophy, a prize he'd won, while painting me, his wife of 5 years, as a worn-out shoe, discarded and forgotten. The divorce papers he slid across the table were just a formality, his signature a cold, impersonal stroke of ink. But as I took them, something inside me shifted. The pain, the betrayal, it sparked a fire, a determination to not let this be the end of my story. "Fine, Mark. I'm offering you a probation period," I said, my voice steady, my resolve firm. 3 months. If you succeed, I will give you a divorce without further ado. His smirk said it all. He thought he'd won, thought he'd broken me. But little did he know, he'd just awakened a sleeping tiger. Mark packed his things, his smugness almost tangible as he prepared to move in with his mistress. I watched him, my expression unreadable. "Enjoy your probation period, Mark. Make sure she's worth it." His grin was all the confirmation I needed that he had no idea what was coming. The moment he left, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was time for a fresh start, and not just for me. The moment I suggested the probation period, I knew it was a gamble. My friend, Lisa, thought I'd completely lost it. We sat in my kitchen, the room still echoing with the remnants of Mark's departure. "Monica, this is madness," Lisa exclaimed, her eyebrows knitted in concern. "You're just giving him a free pass to walk all over you." I took a slow sip of my coffee, feeling the warmth spread through me. "No, Lisa. This isn't surrender. It's strategy. Mark thinks he's playing me, but he's actually walking right into my trap." Lisa looked skeptical, her arms crossed. "And what about his parents? They treat your place like a drive-through. You going to let that slide too?" A smirk tugged at the corner of my lips. "Oh, they're part of the plan too. Just wait and see." Sure enough, the very next day, as if on cue, Mark's parents barged in, their uninvited presence as predictable as ever. This time, though, I was ready. I stood in the doorway, blocking their path with a newfound resolve. "Monica, dear, move aside. We're famished," Mark's mom, Judy, declared, trying to push past me. "Not so fast," I said, standing my ground. "You're both on a 3-month probation period, just like Mark." The confusion on their faces was almost comical. "Probation period? What nonsense is this?" Mark's dad, Ron, blustered, his face turning a shade of red I hadn't seen before. "You heard me," I continued, my voice calm but firm. "It's time for some ground rules. My house isn't a diner, and I'm not your personal chef. Respect that, or find somewhere else to eat." Judy's mouth opened and closed, like a fish out of water. "But we're family, Monica. You can't just—" "I can, and I am," I interrupted, the power of taking control surging through me. "Family or not, everyone needs to respect my space. You've had a free pass for too long." Ron looked like he was about to argue further, but Judy placed a hand on his arm, a silent signal. They exchanged a look, a silent conversation passing between them. Finally, with a huff, Ron nodded. "Fine, Monica. We'll respect your probation period," he grumbled, the words clearly leaving a bitter taste in his mouth. The silence in the house was deafening after Mark and his parents left. It was the first time in years I had the space to just breathe. I looked around, taking in the quiet, and something inside me clicked. This was my chance, my time to rediscover the Monica I'd buried under layers of compromise and sacrifice. I started with small steps. First, it was the clutter Mark had left behind. I gathered his things, boxing them up, each item a farewell to the life I'd known. "This is for you, Monica," I whispered to myself. No looking back. Next, I tackled the mirror. The reflection staring back at me was a far cry from the vibrant woman I used to be. "Time to change that," I said, my voice a mix of determination and excitement. I rummaged through my closet, pushing past the shapeless clothes I'd hidden behind. Deep down, I found the outfits I'd worn back in my accounting days, sharp, chic, a reminder of the confident woman I was. I dressed, the fabric feeling like armor, and for the first time in ages, I smiled at my reflection. The transformation didn't stop there. I hit the ground running, literally. Each morning, I laced up my sneakers and pounded the pavement, the rhythm of my steps a chant of empowerment. "You're doing this, Monica. For you?" I'd tell myself as the miles flew by. My diet changed too. No more quick fixes or catering to uninvited guests. I cooked for one, savoring each meal as a celebration of my newfound independence. The beauty salon became my sanctuary. I sat in the stylist's chair, the buzz of the scissors a melody of change. "Just do it," I told the stylist. "I'm ready for a new me." And so, my hair was cut, my style revamped. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't just see Monica, I saw strength, resilience, the beauty of a woman reborn. One evening, as I reveled in the quiet of my home, Lisa dropped by, unannounced, but always welcome. Her jaw dropped when she saw me. "Monica, is that really you?" she gasped, her eyes wide with amazement. I laughed, the sound rich and genuine. "The one and only." "What do you think?" Lisa circled me, her expression one of pure awe. I think Mark won't know what hit him." "You're stunning, Monica. Truly." The compliment warmed my heart, but I knew the transformation ran deeper than appearances. "It's not for Mark, Lisa. It's for me. I'm rediscovering the Monica I lost, and you know what? She's pretty amazing." Lisa hugged me, her support as unwavering as ever. "She always was, Monica. She always was." With my confidence restored and my spirit unbroken, I took the next step. I dusted off my resume, the document a testament to my skills and achievements. Interviews were lined up, each one an opportunity, a doorway to the future I was building for myself. 2 months after Mark's departure, my quiet routine was interrupted by a call that I had anticipated, yet it still held a tinge of surprise. Mark's name flashed on my phone screen, and I answered with a mix of curiosity and a well-concealed sense of triumph. "Monica, I need your help." Mark's voice came through, tinged with a desperation I hadn't heard before. "She's left me. Said she couldn't deal with my habits, the socks, the mess. I'm alone, Monica." I leaned against the kitchen counter, a sly smile playing on my lips. "Really, Mark? That's unfortunate. But what exactly do you want from me now?" His voice cracked slightly. "I want to come back, Monica. I realize I made a mistake. Can we meet? Please?" The words I had been waiting to say came out smoothly. "All right, Mark. Let's have dinner this Saturday at our place. We'll talk then." I could hear the relief mixed with a note of triumph in his voice. "Thank you, Monica. I'll be there. I knew you'd give us another chance." After the call, the wheels in my mind began to turn. This dinner would be more than just a meal, it would be my stage. I promptly called Mark's parents, extending the invitation for what I knew would be an unforgettable evening. "Judy, Ron, I thought you should join us for dinner this Saturday. Mark will be there," I said, my voice steady and inviting. Judy's response was quick and enthusiastic. "Oh, Monica, that's wonderful news. We've been so worried about you too. It's about time things went back to normal." Ron's voice rumbled through the phone. "Yes, we're looking forward to it, Monica. It's good to have the family back together." Little did they know that normal was the furthest thing from what this dinner was going to be about. I spent the next few days planning not just the menu, but also how I would articulate the newfound clarity and strength I had garnered in their absence. Saturday arrived, bringing with it a moment I had anticipated yet dreaded. The doorbell's chime echoed through the house, a herald of the impending confrontation. I took a deep breath and opened the door. There stood Mark, suitcases in tow, a smirk painting his face. Behind him, Judy and Ron loomed, their expressions a mixture of hope and silent expectations. "I knew you'd come to your senses, Mark said, his voice dripping with a misplaced confidence as his eyes roamed over the new me. Wow, Monica, you look incredible. See, I told you she'd come around, he said, turning to his parents with an air of triumph. Judy chimed in, her voice tinged with relief. Oh, Monica, we're so glad. It's about time things got back to how they were. I motioned for them to sit, my demeanor calm but firm. Please, let's settle down. We have much to discuss. As we gathered in the living room, an awkward tension hung in the air, thick and palpable. Mark, with a misplaced sense of victory, took the lead. Monica, I can't tell you how good it is to be back. I've missed us. And you've really changed. I met his gaze, my own unwavering. I didn't change for you. I changed for me. Mark, what you're seeing isn't a welcome back. It's a goodbye. The shock on his face was mirrored in his parents' expressions. Judy's hand flew to her mouth, and Ron's brow furrowed in confusion. What do you mean, Monica? Judy managed to ask, her voice a quiver of disbelief. Mark left because he thought he'd found something better. But life outside wasn't what he expected, was it? I said, turning my attention back to Mark, who seemed to shrink under the weight of my words. It's not like that, Monica. I realized I made a mistake. That woman, she was nothing compared to you. She left because she couldn't handle, well, the things you always took care of. Mark stuttered, his bravado fading with each word. You mean your mess, your irresponsibility? I corrected him sharply. And now you think you can just waltz back in here, back into my life? Judy interjected, her voice laced with desperation. But Monica, he's realized his mistake. Can't you give him another chance? No, Judy. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill, not destroying a marriage. And Ron, you both need to understand that my home is not your convenience. I continued, addressing each of them, making sure my stance was clear. Ron, who had been silent, finally spoke, his voice a low rumble. But we're family, Monica. Family sticks together. That's just it, Ron. Family respects each other. Mark disrespected our marriage, and you both disrespected my home. That's not family, that's taking advantage. Mark, now fully deflated, made one last plea. Monica, please, I have nowhere else to go. I'll change, I swear. I stood up, my resolve as solid as ever. It's too late for promises, Mark. We're done. And as for having nowhere to go, that was your choice when you left. I've moved on. You gave me these divorce papers, I said, holding them up. And I signed them. We've been officially divorced for 2 months. The room went silent, the shock palpable in the air. Mark's parents looked from him to me, disbelief written all over their faces. You're divorced? Judy finally managed to say, her voice barely a whisper. I nodded. Yes, and now, I'd like Mark to collect his things and leave my house. And Judy, Ron, I wish you well, but from now on, my home is my own, I declared, the finality in my tone broking no argument. Mark was grasping at straws now, desperation clear in his voice. Monica, please, I made a mistake. I'll change, I promise. I'll clean, I'll cook, I'll do anything. But my decision was firm. It's too late, Mark. It's over between us. And just so you know, I got a job as an accountant while you were away. I don't need you to take care of me. He was floundering, his pleas becoming more frantic. But Monica, you can't do this. I have nowhere to go. That's not my problem anymore, Mark. If you don't leave, I'll call the police, I said, my tone leaving no room for negotiation. At that point, Judy and Ron stood up, their faces a mix of disappointment and realization. They approached Mark, each taking one of his arms. Let's go, son. You've made your bed, now you have to lie in it, Ron said, his voice heavy with resignation. Before they left, Judy turned to me, her eyes softening. Monica, you're right. Our son was a fool to let a woman like you go. Life, after Mark and his parents' departure, settled into a rhythm that was all my own. I heard bits and pieces about Mark through the grapevine, friends who couldn't help but share the latest gossip. They said he was living with his parents again, struggling to find his footing in a world where he couldn't just rely on someone else to clean up his messes. "Monica, you won't believe what I saw today," Lisa said one afternoon, her voice a mix of amusement and disbelief. "Mark was at the grocery store, and let me tell you, he looked rough. Hair all over the place, clothes mismatched. It's like he's lost without you." I couldn't help but feel a twinge of vindication. "Well, Lisa, that's what happens when you take everything for granted. Eventually, you have to face the consequences." The word was that Mark tried his hand at dating again, but no surprise, it didn't go too well. The same issues that drove me away were now driving away other potential partners. "He's demanding, messy, just a lot to handle," a mutual friend shared. "No one wants to put up with that." I nodded, a sense of closure enveloping me. "Some lessons are learned the hard way," I said, not without a hint of satisfaction. As for me, life had taken a turn for the better, a stark contrast to the disheveled, pathetic figure Mark had become. I got a job as an accountant again, my mind sharp, my contributions valued. The office was a buzz of activity, a place where I thrived, surrounded by numbers and reports. And it wasn't just my career that had taken a turn for the better. My personal life was blossoming too. There was someone new, someone who was everything Mark wasn't. His name was Daniel, and he brought a sense of calm, a respect that I had longed for. As the days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, my life was a testament to resilience, a story of rising from the ashes. Mark, now just a distant memory, was a reminder of what I had overcome. I was Monica, no longer the shadow of someone else's demands or expectations.
I'm Hannah, and I met John in college, and we clicked instantly. He was charming, funny, and ambitious. We got married right after graduation and started building our life together. When our daughter Sophie was born, I was over the moon. I poured all my love and energy into raising her, determined to give her the best start in life. I believed in setting boundaries and instilling discipline. "Knowledge is power," I'd always tell her. "Study hard and you'll go far." John, on the other hand, had a different parenting style. He'd shower Sophie with gifts, buy her sweets and let her get away with things I wouldn't. "Come on, Hannah," he'd say. "Let her be a kid." It bothered me, but I figured we balanced each other out. As Sophie grew older, it became clear she was a daddy's girl. She'd run to John with her problems, laugh at his jokes, and light up when he came home from work. With me, it was all eye rolls and yes, mom in that tone teenager's perfect. I'd bite my tongue, reminding myself that Sophie would understand when she was older. She'd see that my strict approach came from a place of love. But even at 17, Sophie remained firmly in her father's camp. It stung, but I consoled myself with the thought that I was doing right by her in the long run. Despite these small frustrations, I considered myself fulfilled. I had a successful career at a respected clinic, a husband who still made me laugh, and a daughter who, despite our differences, I adored. Life was good, or so I thought. Everything changed on a crisp autumn day. I was doing laundry, a mundane task I'd done 1,000 times before. As I emptied John's coat pockets, my fingers brushed against a piece of paper. I pulled it out, expecting a grocery receipt or a dry cleaning ticket. Instead, I found myself staring at a receipt from an upscale perfume store. The perfume listed was an expensive brand I'd never wear, too floral, too sweet. John knew I preferred subtler scents. I stood there, the washing machine humming in the background, as 1,000 possibilities raced through my mind. Was it a surprise gift? But my birthday had passed, and our anniversary was months away. Was it for his mother? But she was allergic to most perfumes. With shaking hands, I took a picture of the receipt with my phone. Then, carefully, I placed it back in his pocket. I needed time to think, to process this information without jumping to conclusions. That evening, when John was in the shower, I checked his coat again. The receipt was gone. I kept my discovery to myself, not breathing a word to John or Sophie, but now that my eyes were open, I couldn't stop noticing things. It was like a fog had lifted, revealing a landscape I didn't recognize. John's late nights at work weren't new, but now they felt different. Big project, honey, he'd say, kissing me on the cheek as he left. Don't wait up, I'd nod and smile, all the while wondering who he was really meeting. His new haircut caught my attention too. He'd always been particular about his appearance, but this was different. Younger. Trendier. When I complimented him, he shrugged it off. Thought I'd try something new. The weekend fishing trips were the worst. Every other Saturday he'd load up his gear and head out to meet his buddies. Fish are really biting lately, he'd say with a grin. I'd watch him drive away, wondering if he even owned a fishing rod anymore. Before finding that receipt, I hadn't connected these dots. Now they formed a picture I couldn't unsee. The thought I'd been avoiding burst to the surface. John had a mistress. I tried to shake it off. This was John, my John. The man who held my hand through 20 hours of labor. The guy who surprised me with flowers on random Tuesdays. He wouldn't cheat. But the doubt gnawed at me. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake, listening to John's steady breathing, wondering if he was dreaming of her. One sleepless night, I found myself scrolling through Facebook. A name caught my eye, Mike Thompson. We'd gone to high school together, and I vaguely remembered he'd become a private investigator. Before I could talk myself out of it, I sent him a message. We met at a coffee shop across town the next day. I took a deep breath and spilled everything. The receipt, John's behavior, my suspicions. Mike listened without interrupting, his face neutral. Mike agreed to take the case. As I watched him leave, I felt a mix of relief and dread. Soon I'd have answers, but did I really want them? The next 3 weeks were the hardest of my life. I went through the motions, smiling at my patients, helping Sophie with her schoolwork, making small talk with John over dinner. But inside, I was a mess. Every time my phone buzzed, I'd jump, thinking it was Mike with news. Every time John came home late, I'd search his face for signs of guilt. Every time Sophie mentioned her dad, I'd wonder if she knew something I didn't. "You okay, Mom?" Sophie asked one evening, catching me staring blankly at the wall. "You seem off." I plastered on a smile. "Just tired, sweetie. Lots of clients this week." She didn't look convinced, but she let it go. I felt a pang of guilt for lying to her, but what could I say? Your dad might be cheating on me, and I've hired someone to spy on him. John, caught up in whatever or whoever was occupying his time, didn't seem to notice anything amiss. Part of me was relieved, part of me was furious that he could be so oblivious to my pain. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was between clients when my phone buzzed. Mike's name flashed on the screen, and my heart leapt into my throat. "Hannah? Can we meet?" His voice was neutral, giving nothing away. We agreed to meet at the same coffee shop in an hour. The rest of my appointments were a blur. I went through the motions, smiling and nodding at my clients while my mind raced. Mike was already there when I arrived, a thick manila envelope on the table in front of him. My stomach dropped at the sight of it. "Hannah." Mike pushed the envelope towards me. "It's all in here. Photos, dates, locations. I'm sorry, Hannah, but your suspicions were right." With shaking hands, I opened the envelope. The first photo hit me like a punch to the gut. John, my John, with his arms around a younger woman. They were laughing, looking into each other's eyes with unmistakable affection. "Who is she?" I managed to choke out. "Alicia Benson," Mike replied. "She's 28, works at John's company. She's the director's daughter." I flipped through more photos. John and Alicia at restaurants, walking in the park, boarding a yacht. Each image was a fresh wound. "They've been seeing each other for over a year," Mike continued. "From what I've gathered, it's serious. They've talked about a future together." I nodded numbly, barely registering his words. Then a photo made me gasp. It showed John and Alicia at a cafe, but they weren't alone. Sitting with them, smiling and laughing, was Sophie. "No," I whispered. "It can't be." Mike's voice was gentle. "I'm sorry, Hannah, but Sophie knows about the affair. She's met with them several times. Those weekends she said she was with friends? She was with them on Alicia's yacht. There's more. John and Alicia had been buying Sophie expensive gifts, designer clothes, jewelry. I think they're trying to buy her silence. I don't remember the drive home. Thankfully, the house was empty when I arrived. I moved on autopilot, packing a small suitcase with clothes and essentials. I couldn't stay here, couldn't face John or Sophie. I checked into a hotel across town, my mind still reeling. Once in my room, I called my boss at the clinic and took 2 weeks off, unpaid. Family emergency. I turned off my phone and sank onto the bed. The envelope seemed to mock me from the bedside table. Unable to help myself, I opened it again. Sleep eluded me that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those damning photos. Sophie's smile as she hugged Alicia, John's arm around them both. My anger, which had started as a slow simmer, began to boil over. For years I'd been the understanding one, the peacemaker, the one who bent over backwards to keep everyone happy. Well, I was done with that. My eyes fell on my laptop. Without really thinking, I opened it and logged into my bank account. There it was, Sophie's college fund. I'd been squirreling away money for years, determined to give her the best education possible. It was my way of showing love, even when she pushed me away. Now, looking at that balance, all I could think about was how Sophie had betrayed me. How she'd lied to my face, spent time with that woman, accepted her gifts. My daughter, who I'd sacrificed so much for, had stabbed me in the back. Suddenly, a memory surfaced. Years ago, before Sophie was born, I dreamed of opening my own cosmetology office. But then life happened: marriage, a baby, mortgage payments. My dream got pushed aside. I stared at the account balance. It was enough. Enough to start over, to finally pursue my own dreams instead of everyone else's. You know what I said out loud to the empty hotel room? Screw it. This money isn't for Sophie anymore. It's for me. The words hung in the air, both terrifying and exhilarating. For the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. I had a future, even if it wasn't the one I'd planned. Emotionally drained, I finally drifted off to sleep, my phone still turned off. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains. For a blissful moment, I forgot everything. Then reality came crashing back. With a deep breath, I turned on my phone. It immediately exploded with notifications. Missed calls from John and Sophie. Voicemails. Text messages asking where I was, if I was okay. Their concern, which once would have melted my heart, now felt like acid in my veins. How dare they pretend to care now? I didn't bother listening to the voicemails or reading the texts. Instead, I got dressed, packed my bag, and checked out of the hotel. It was time to face the music. The drive home felt surreal. Part of me wanted to keep driving, to disappear and start a new life somewhere else. But I squashed that impulse. I needed closure. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw John's car and Sophie's bike. They were both home. Good. I walked in, my heels clicking on the hardwood floor. John and Sophie rushed out of the living room, their faces a mix of relief and anxiety. "Hannah, where have you been?" "We've been so worried," John exclaimed, moving to hug me. Sophie chimed in, her voice shrill with concern. "Mom, are you okay? Why didn't you answer our calls?" I stepped back, avoiding John's embrace. A cold laugh escaped me, stopping them both in their tracks. Without a word, I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder. I tossed it on the coffee table, photos spilling out. John and Sophie stared at the images, their faces draining of color. There they were, in glossy 8x10s, John with Alicia, Sophie with them both. The silence that followed my revelation was deafening. John was the first to recover, his shock morphing into defensive anger. "Hannah, it's not what you think," he started, his voice placating. "Alicia and I were just friends, and Sophie, she..." "Don't you dare drag Sophie into your lies," I cut him off, my voice ice cold. Sophie jumped in, her eyes wide with feigned innocence. "Mom, please, I can explain. I only met her a few times, I didn't know." I held up a hand, silencing them both. "Save it, I know everything. The yacht trips, the expensive gifts, the dinners. Every lie, every betrayal." They exchanged a look, and I saw the moment they realized their act wasn't working. The mask slipped away, revealing the strangers beneath. John's face hardened, all pretense of remorse vanishing. "Fine," he said coldly. "You want the truth? Yes, I'm with Alicia. She's young, beautiful, and rich. She makes me feel alive in a way you haven't in years." His words were like a slap to the face, but I refused to flinch. Instead, I turned to Sophie, waiting for her contribution to this character assassination. She didn't disappoint. "Alicia is amazing, Mom," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "She's successful, stylish, fun, not strict and boring like you." I absorbed their words, each one a fresh wound. But I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. "I see," I said, my voice steady. "Well, let me tell you both something. John, I want a divorce. I'll have my lawyer contact you." John's eyes widened, but before he could speak, I turned to Sophie. "And you, young lady, you can forget about me paying for your college tuition. If Alicia is so amazing, maybe she can foot the bill." Sophie's jaw dropped. "What? You can't do that. That's my money. I've been counting on it. I want to get into my dream school." "Should have thought about that before you stabbed me in the back," I replied, unmoved by her crocodile tears. "Mom, please," she sobbed, her cool demeanor crumbling. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean what I said. Please forgive me. I need that money." But her earlier words echoed in my mind. Strict, boring. Worse than the other woman. Ignoring their protests, I went upstairs and packed the rest of my belongings. As I came back down, suitcase in hand, John blocked my path. "Hannah, let's talk about this rationally," he said, his tone businesslike. "The house, our assets." "My lawyer will be in touch," I interrupted, pushing past him. "I'm done talking to you." The next few weeks passed in a blur. I found a small apartment and threw myself into the logistics of dismantling a 20-year marriage. I hired a lawyer and requested a mediator, determined to handle this divorce as cleanly as possible. The last thing I wanted was a drawn-out, messy court battle. Sophie called incessantly at first. When I didn't pick up, she resorted to texts, then emails. Each message was a mix of apology and demand. I read each one, my heart breaking anew every time. But I couldn't bring myself to respond. The wound was too fresh, the betrayal too deep. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself staring at my phone, Sophie's number on the screen. My finger would hover over the call button, a war raging inside me. Part of me yearned to hear her voice, to believe her apologies. But then I'd remember her cruel words, her secret meetings with John and Alicia, and I'd put the phone down. Days turned into weeks. Each meeting with John was a test of endurance, conducted in the sterile environment of our lawyers' offices. The man I once loved was now just another face across the conference table, all business and cold efficiency. One day, as I settled into my usual chair, the door opened and Sophie walked in behind John. My heart clenched at the sight of her, but her expression stopped any warm feelings cold. She looked at me with a mixture of condescension and triumph that took my breath away. "Hello, Mother," she said, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "I hope you don't mind me joining today." Before I could respond, she continued, "I just wanted to let you know that I won't be needing your pathetic money after all. Alicia has generously offered to pay for my education at any top college in the States." She paused, clearly savoring the moment. "Oh, and I'll be living with Dad and Alicia from now on. We're going to be one big, happy family." I felt the eyes of our lawyers and the mediator on me, waiting for my reaction. But I was too tired, too drained to feel much of anything anymore. I simply shrugged. "If that's what you want, Sophie," I said, my voice flat, "I hope you'll be happy." Something flickered in her eyes, disappointment. Had she been hoping for a bigger reaction? But it was gone in an instant, replaced by that same smug look. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur of legal jargon and asset division. In the end, John and I split everything down the middle. The house would be sold, with the proceeds divided equally between us. With my share from the house sale and the money I'd saved for Sophie's college fund, I had enough to make a fresh start. I found a small but cozy apartment and, after much soul-searching, decided to take a leap of faith. I quit my job at the clinic and threw myself into creating a business plan for my own cosmetology office. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. All those years of experience, all the dreams I'd put on hold, it was time to put them to use. Weeks of planning, renovating, and nervous anticipation followed. But finally, Hannah's Beauty Haven opened its doors. Those first few months were a whirlwind of long hours, social media marketing blitzes, and the slow but steady growth of my client base. In quiet moments, usually late at night when the day's work was done, I'd find myself scrolling through social media. Sophie's posts would appear on my feed, pictures of her in designer clothes, lounging on Alicia's yacht, always smiling, always looking carefree and happy. Each image was a knife to my heart. I'd wonder if she ever thought of me, if she missed me at all. When her 18th birthday rolled around, I sent her a message wishing her well. Same for her high school graduation. Both went unanswered. A year had passed since the divorce, and life had settled into a new rhythm. My cosmetology office, once just a dream, was now a thriving reality. The steady stream of loyal clients from my clinic days, combined with a growing number of new faces, kept me busier than I'd ever been. I'd even hired 2 assistants to help manage the workload. On a sunny Tuesday afternoon, as I was finishing up with a client, my phone buzzed. It was my cousin, Sarah. "Hannah, you won't believe what I just saw," she said, her voice a mix of concern and disbelief. "I was at the Meadowbrook supermarket, you know, the one on the other side of town, and I swear I saw Sophie working at the checkout." My heart skipped a beat. "Sophie? Are you sure?" "Positive." She looked different, thinner, tired, but it was definitely her. I thanked Sarah and hung up, my mind reeling. Sophie, working at a supermarket. What about college? What about Alicia's promise to fund her education? That night, after closing the office, I did something I hadn't done in months. I looked up Sophie's social media. What I found shocked me. All her glamorous photos with John and Alicia were gone. There were no updates, no college move-in pictures, nothing. Her once active profile was a digital ghost town. For days I wrestled with what to do. Part of me wanted to rush to the supermarket to demand answers. But another part, the part still nursing the wounds of betrayal, held me back. Finally, on my day off, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove to the Meadowbrook supermarket, my heart pounding as I walked through the automatic doors. And there she was. Sophie, my baby girl, looking so different from the confident young woman who'd sneered at me in the lawyer's office. She was thin, almost gaunt, dark circles under her eyes as she mechanically scanned items at the checkout. Our eyes met, and I saw a flash of something. Embarrassment? Shame? Before I could decipher it, she looked away, her cheeks flushing. I approached her checkout, my steps hesitant. "Sophie." She glanced up, then quickly back down at the register. "What do you want?" Her voice was harsh, defensive. "I'd like to talk. Maybe we could get coffee after your shift." "I don't want to talk to you," she snapped, still not meeting my eyes. "Please leave." "Sophie, please." I said leave. She finally looked at me, her eyes blazing with a mix of anger and something else. Was it fear? Stunned by her vehemence, I backed away. Other customers were starting to stare. With a heavy heart, I left the supermarket, climbing into my car with shaking hands. As I drove home, my mind was a whirlwind of questions. What had happened? Where were John and Alicia? Why wasn't Sophie in college? For days after, I waited for a call, a text, anything. But my phone remained stubbornly silent. I thought about going back to the supermarket, but Sophie's words rang in my ears. "I don't want to talk to you." Just as I was beginning to lose hope, my phone rang. An unknown number flashed on the screen. With a mix of trepidation and curiosity, I answered. Mom. Sophie's voice, small and uncertain, came through the speaker. "Can we meet, please?" We agreed to meet at a small cafe near my office. As I waited, my mind raced with possibilities. When Sophie walked in, my breath caught. She looked so different from the glowing, confident girl in those yacht photos, so much older than her years. We sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of unsaid words hanging between us. Finally, Sophie spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry, Mom, for everything." And then, like a dam breaking, the story poured out of her. At first, living with John and Alicia had been a dream. Designer clothes, yacht trips, promises of a bright future. But the honeymoon period didn't last. Alicia started making comments, Sophie said, her eyes fixed on her untouched coffee. Little digs about how much space I took up, how expensive I was. Then she told Dad I couldn't live with them anymore, that there was no money for college. I gasped. But your father? Surely he didn't agree. Sophie's bitter laugh was answer enough. He said I was an adult now, that I needed to stand on my own 2 feet. They kicked me out, Mom. I had nowhere to go. Why didn't you call me? I asked, reaching for her hand across the table. She pulled away, tears in her eyes. I was so ashamed. And then I realized, this must be how you felt when we betrayed you. I couldn't face you after that. My heart broke for her, even as a small, petty part of me whispered, good. Now she knows how it feels. I'm sharing a crappy apartment with a coworker, Sophie continued. The supermarket job barely covers rent and food. I feel so useless. I wanted to wrap her in my arms, to tell her everything would be okay. But I knew it wasn't that simple. Sophie, I said gently, I'm so sorry you're going through this, but you're right, you did betray me. Actions have consequences, and this is something you need to work through. We both cried then, mourning the lost year, the broken trust, the pain we'd caused each other. As we parted, something had shifted between us. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. That night I tossed and turned, Sophie's story playing on repeat in my mind. By morning I'd made a decision. I called Sophie. I have a proposition for you, I said. I need an administrator at my office. The pay's not great, but it's better than the supermarket. And maybe we can start rebuilding from there. There was a long pause. Then, yes, I'd like that. Thank you, Mom. It's been 6 months since that day. Sophie works at my office now, learning the business from the ground up. She's saving for community college, determined to make it on her own merit this time. Our relationship is a work in progress. There are good days and bad days, moments of connection and moments of tension. The trust we once had is slowly, painstakingly being rebuilt, one day at a time. As I watch Sophie greet a client with a warm smile, I feel a glimmer of hope. We're not the same people we were before the betrayal, the divorce, the year of silence. But maybe, just maybe, we can be something new, something stronger,